Hello and welcome back. Is Jonathan Huberdeau actually showing signs of life for the first time in over a year and a half? Well, in his last 3 games, 2 goals, 3 assists, 3 power play points, and even though the Flames are selling off, they are winning games right now. Nazem Kadri is red hot, Kuzmenko's been good since coming over, and apparently Huberdeau is starting to pick it up as well. Now, Week 18 also means the end of the All-Star Week, and so we return to a normal schedule. So this is what that looks like for Week 18. 47 games, 11 games on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, 36 on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So you're going to want to pick up guys with those light night games. And there is one perfect schedule, and that is Arizona. So they play Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, the perfect schedule. We will go into their waiver ads in detail in the next slide. But another thing I wanted to bring to your attention, the Devils play 10 games in the next 17 days. So this would be a good time to pick up some Devils, and they have a 4-game week this week with a front-loaded back-to-back. The Wild also play 7 games in the next 13 days. So they could be a good pickup, even though they only have 3 games this week. Now you can see the least games this week: Columbus, Islanders, Vegas, Winnipeg, Washington. And then the most games you can see here: the Devils, Coyotes, and the Kings. And then we also have the Penguins, who have 2 light night games, a Wednesday and a Sunday, despite only having these 3 games. And this Thursday night game is a game that if you picked up somebody from the Penguins, you might want to keep them in your roster anyway. So just something to keep in the back of your mind. Down here we have the rating change, and a couple of the guys from these teams are highlighted here. They've been improving. Jason Zucker had a nice game last night. So we'll get into some of these guys as we move forward. But let's take a look now at the Coyotes waiver ads, because there's a lot to talk about. So we'll start it off. Lawson Crouse is probably your best ad in terms of completeness, in terms of trying to get everything that you can out of shots, hits, blocks, etc. Not a lot of data on him over the last couple weeks, because obviously we had the break in there and he hasn't necessarily produced coming out of the break. But this is a guy that is one of the better players on the Player Hub, as I'll bring that in and show you. You can see here he is second behind Sean Durzi. And if we look at his hub, you're getting goal production 89th percentile. You're getting 1.82 hits per game and a couple blocks, some power play points, and a little bit of shot volume. He has been trending down, but that is probably because of the All-Star break and just not a lot of action going on. But he would probably be your best ad if you're looking for a consistent floor with those hits and blocks and the goal scoring. If you're looking for pretty much the same type of thing, but a little bit less consistent and a little bit less complete, Jason Zucker, a goal, 3 assists, 2 power play points in his last 2 games. And he's one of those guys that historically is a hitter with some goal scoring. The goal scoring hasn't quite been there, 8 goals on the year, but 1.1 hits per game is pretty nice. Getting some power play time, and the shot volume is pretty comparable to Lawson Crouse, so you're not missing out there. Zucker, 8% owned single position, compared to Crouse, 43% owned dual position. That could make or break your decision on who to pick up. Now, another guy that I usually love picking up for these type of situations where the Coyotes have a good week is Nick Schmaltz. So his power play numbers are really good. So 0.30 power play points per game, 91st percentile right there. 14 goals on the year is not bad either. He is a center right wing, and in face-off leagues, he does take a couple face-offs, so that is helpful as well. A goal, 2 assists, 3 points, a power play point, and 4 hits in his last 4 games. So he's been, one of those guys that I look at more often than not. Him and Crouse are the 2 guys that I would pick from. But there are a couple of other options that are a little bit riskier because of their age and because of their inconsistency, quote unquote. Logan Cooley was a guy that I was riding earlier on in the season when he was hot. Then he went cold. That's what happens with young players. They go hot and cold, and you kind of have to balance out. When they're not going, you drop them. When they are going, you pick them back up. He's got 4 points in his last 6 games, 2 goals, 2 assists, and he is getting some power play time. You can see Cooley, 82nd percentile on the power play, is not bad for a rookie. So not the most complete player at a 55. You can see he doesn't hit or block that much. The shot volume is pretty low, and you're mainly getting him for that power play exposure. But he is getting some power play time, and that is helpful if you're in a deeper league. At 15% owned, he's a center, so maybe not the best positional eligibility. So the guy underneath him might be a better deep league pickup, and that is Dylan Guenther. So 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points, 2 power play points in his last 5 games. He's red hot right now. You can see his trend line just going straight, not vertical, but up and to the right. So he's up to a 67.5, 68 if you round it up, and he's getting some power play time on PP2. He's got a really good shot. He's been a noted goal scorer wherever he's been. He was putting up points in the AHL, and now he comes up to the Coyotes. Not a lot of games played this year. 9 points in 13 games, 4 goals, 5 assists is really nice for a younger player. And you can definitely find him on the wire. He's available in almost every league format. Now, with the Coyotes, we do also have to talk about goaltending, and for that, I'll bring up this next animation. So here you can see how the goaltenders stacked up so far this year. Right off the bat, Ingram took the net from Vejmelka, and he pretty much held it on the entire season, and he's been kind of hovering between a 75 and an 80. You can't see the legend over there, but basically between a 75 and an 80 over here, and he's kind of stayed there. So Ingram is still your starter. He's still going to be the guy that you can count on, but can you count on Vejmelka? He hasn't been great. 38 on the goaltending hub rating, so really not, ownable, not really streamable at this point. He throws in a good game every now and then, but he's just not consistent enough to rely on. So I don't necessarily recommend picking up Vejmelka. If Ingram is there, definitely do that, but not a whole lot in terms of being able to stream guys, and they don't have any back-to-backs, so I don't know if you'll need to do that. But up next, we'll take a look at the New Jersey Devils. Now, first things first, we do want to mention, don't pick up Vitek Vanacek. He's been horrendous. I'll show you the graph in just a minute. But a couple guys that we do need to talk about in terms of ads this week. Andre Palat, 2% owned, left winger. He's pretty much available in every league format. 5 points in his last 4 games. He did have a 3-game point streak in there. Obviously, the Devils got shut out on Saturday night. 3 goals, 2 assists in that time frame. And Palat is a veteran leader who plays middle 6 minutes. Now that they've got Jack Hughes back, everybody else in that offense should be slotted a little bit better. So he might be able to get an opportunity for you with either Hischier or with Hughes, depending on how they send out their lines. But 2% owned, single position left winger. He's probably available for almost all of you, and he is red hot right now. And that's something that you kind of have to look for because their top guys are owned up. Hischier, Bratt, Hughes, etc. Toffoli's pretty much owned up in the mid 80s in terms of ownership percentage. So you kind of have to dig a little bit deeper, and I would probably tend to lean towards Palat more than an Eric Haula unless you're in a face-off league. So this would be one of the better pickups this week. But if you're looking for D, Simon Nemec has been really productive this year. 7 assists, a power play point, 20 blocks in his last 11 games. On the year, 29 games played, 14 points. He's currently playing second power play minutes right now. And the second power play is nothing to sneeze at. They have a couple of really good players on there. Timo Meier's playing there. I believe Palat is getting power play 2 times. So Simon Nemec has been a real bright spot for the Devils. Luke Hughes is another one of those guys who's going to benefit from Jack Hughes being back on that first power play unit, but Nemec is still going to be quarterbacking the second unit, and he is relatively available compared to Luke Hughes at 7% ownership. Now, as we take a look at their hub, here you can see Palat trending in the right direction basically since Christmas time. He was a 61. Now he's up to almost a 69, about 68.5. He's getting some blocks, getting 1.1 hits per game, some power play production. Everything else is kind of mid, but he is productive over his last 4 games. So that is something that you might want to ride into this stretch where they play 10 games in the next, 10 games in the next 17 days, I believe it was. And the Devils have been one of those teams that, again, very top heavy. Bratt is owned up. Hamilton's on IR. Hughes is obviously owned up. Hischier's owned up. Timo Meier is still relatively complete, mainly because of his shot volume and the hits that he gets. He's just not that productive. I did pick him up just because of the schedule and because he's giving you a decent floor in points leagues, but he still hasn't kind of found that form that he was at in San Jose. It's just not happening for him with the Devils, but if you wanted to go that route, he is pretty owned up in the mid-60s. I believe he was 64% owned last time I checked. And then the other guy that we were talking about is Simon Nemec, and we'll just look at his file real quick. So really good assist numbers. The goals have not really been there in terms of, he's got 2 goals on the year, which isn't bad for a rookie, but he's mainly known for his power play assists. So that's what you're getting out of him, and the blocks, 1.6 blocks per game. But now we'll take a look at the goaltending, and I'll show you why you don't want to own Vitek Vanacek. So starting out the year, it looked like it was Vanacek and Schmid, and that would be a good combo. And then they kind of flip-flopped. Vanacek maintained control of the top spot here, but all of these guys are really low. So I don't know if you can tell here on the graph, but Vanacek is a 50. That's really low in terms of a starter. Schmid is even worse, and Dawes came in, looked okay, and then he kind of faded out. So he is below Schmid, believe it or not, even though Schmid's in the AHL. So you really don't want to touch Devils goaltending. I guess in a pinch, they do have this back-to-back. You could potentially go with, if Dawes is going to get this game here or even this game here. Neither of these offenses for Seattle or Nashville are particularly hot, but I wouldn't necessarily trust either of these guys right now, as they are well below Vanacek, and Vanacek is one of the worst goaltenders in the league right now. So definitely something to keep in mind as you're looking for goalie streams. We will get into some goalie streams later in the video. Now up next, we've got to take a look at the LA Kings, and they have a pretty decent schedule as well. They're playing a lot of the heavier nights. I don't have it at the bottom of the screen there, but they do play Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And then there are a couple of guys that you do want to pay attention to. So first up, we've got Quinton Byfield. He is red hot. 4 goals, 4 assists, 8 points, a power play point in a 5-game point streak. He's line 1. He's power play 1. He's only 38% owned, center left wing. This may be, if he continues this point streak, this may be the best pickup of the week because of the fact he's red hot. He's dual position eligible. He's available in probably most 12-team leagues, definitely 10-team leagues. Anything maybe 14-teamers, he's probably maybe not there for you, but for a lot of you out there, he's going to be one of your better pickups this week. Red hot, getting that power play time. Just had a 2-goal game on Saturday, so he's definitely, same draft class as Lafreniere. We're seeing Lafreniere break out. Quinton Byfield is also breaking out with this additional time that he's getting up with Kopitar and Kempe. There are a couple of other guys that you could turn to, and for that, we'll bring up their player hub. Now you can see here on the ratings, Drew Doughty is number 1, Kempe is number 2. Those guys are owned up, but the next best guy that you can get in terms of completeness is Trevor Moore. He's got 21 goals on the year, which puts him 36th in the NHL, but he's ahead of guys like Kaprizov, Eichel, McCann, Aho, etc. He's line 2 and power play 2, playing with Deneau and Fiala on that second line. 3.4 shots per game is really nice to see. 96th percentile in shots, 93rd percentile in goals. So the shot blocks are okay. The hits are not really there. Power play is not going to be there as much because he is second power play unit. But he is on a 3-game point streak right now, 3 assists and a power play point in his last 3 games, and he is really complete. He's a guy I've been holding for a while now. I believe in the Data Draft League and possibly in the Fantasy Puck Creators League. I'd have to double check which league I have him in, but he's a guy that I've been streaming pretty consistently for the past 2 years, and same type of thing can be said about Phil Deneau. I've always liked that Deneau, Moore, Arvidsson line. Keep an eye out. Arvidsson could be coming back relatively soon. I don't have a time frame on that, but when Arvidsson comes back, he is really productive. He is really good for shots and goals, and he does get some hits in there as well. But in terms of Deneau, you're getting some blocks, you're getting a little bit of power play production, some assists, but he is really complete across everything, getting almost a hit per game. He has been trending down this past week. However, this is mainly just kind of variance in how things go. He's always one of those guys that I pick up in terms of a good Kings week. I look at him, I look at Moore, and those two guys, Moore's got the higher ownership percentage here. He is dual position eligible, which is a little bit more favorable, but Deneau is a good add as well. But if you're looking for peripherals, Matt Roy has been one of those guys that I've looked at earlier in the season, a couple weeks ago. 4 hits and blocks, 90th percentile in blocks, 2.29 blocks per game, 1.81 hits per game, and getting some shot volume, 85th percentile there. He's got 11 hits and 7 blocks in his last 3 games. So it's still happening for Matt Roy. You're not going to get a lot of offensive production out of him, but if you're just looking for those peripherals in a week where they do play those 4 games, this would be an opportune time to pick up Matt Roy. Now, I'm not going to bring up their goaltending because we will talk about Dave Riddick in the goaltending section. So without further ado, let's jump to the goaltending section. Now, Week 18 goaltending, this is going to be a little bit different. Normally, I've been highlighting guys you can pick up that are potential starters, and then we look at some streamers, but there's not a whole lot in terms of change 4 starters and 1A, 1B situations, so we'll just look at some streaming options for Week 18. First up, we have Jonathan Quick, who is currently 3rd in the NHL in goals against and 6th in the NHL in save percentage. Raise your hand if you had that at the beginning of the season. I could not have been more wrong about Jonathan Quick. I thought he was not an NHL goaltender anymore. Turns out he's one of the best in the league. 3 wins, 1.32 goals against, 952 save percentage in his last 3 starts, and he did start 3 games in a row, the game before the All-Star break and the 2 following the All-Star break, and he looked great in all 3 of them. I don't think that they're going to start fading Shesterkin and giving Quick a lot more starts, but he is slowly kind of establishing himself as the 1B as opposed to the backup. So if he's going to continue to get some starts, he's a must-own, 44% owned. You can see here he's been trending up over the past couple of weeks, basically since the 14th. Those 3 games have catapulted him from around a 60 up to a 68.5, 69 thereabouts. And the main reason he's not higher is because he doesn't get a lot of games played, and he does get wins when he is playing, but the total save volume is not that high because the Rangers have been very good defensively in front of him, especially over the last couple games. So he's a must-own if he is starting. They do have 3 games next week, so I don't know how many starts he'll get, but if he is in, you definitely want to pick him up. Now, up next, we have Calvin Pickard. The Edmonton Oilers were rolling 16 in a row. They did lose to Vegas. They come back with a decent effort the following game after that. And Pickard has been, receiving a lot of the same type of things that Skinner's been getting. So they've cut down on their rush chances. They were worst in the league off the rush before the coaching change. After, they've been one of the better teams off the rush. And you can see here, Pickard going from a 29, climbing all the way up to a 58, dropping a little bit there, but the team defense is really good, which is kind of crazy to say about the Edmonton Oilers, who are known for their offense. But in 8 starts this year, 6 wins, 2.42 goals against, and a 912 save percentage with a shutout. If you see him playing, definitely worth a pickup. They don't have any back-to-backs this week, but if he gets in, he's worth a streaming option. As there's not a lot going on in terms of Jack Campbell news, I don't think he's going to get called up. So for right now, it is Pickard's net. Now, a guy who does have a back-to-back that you might want to grab is Anthony Stolarz. He's been really consistent for most of the season. They do have that back-to-back Wednesday at Pittsburgh and Thursday at Buffalo. It depends on which game he gets. I don't think either one of those games are things that, a game where you wouldn't want to pick him up because of their offense. Both teams have good offenses that just aren't producing. The power play for Pittsburgh is still not going, and Buffalo still can't score despite the fact that Tage Thompson's back. But 2 wins, 1.68 goals against, 932 save percentage in his last 3 starts. You're getting really good team defense exposure out of Stolarz, 91st percentile there. The goals against is great, 2.1 goals against, 917 save percentage, 4.5 goals saved above expected. So you're getting a lot of this out of Bobrovsky, who you can see here is the number 2 goaltender on the goalie hub this week. And a lot of that is bleeding over into Stolarz's file as well. He's 56% owned, so he may not be there for you. So if you do want a different option, you can go to Nedeljkovic. Now, Nedeljkovic isn't going to have the same type of stats. 8 wins and 15 starts is roughly, a little bit above or right around 500, which isn't necessarily what you'd like, but the 263 goals against and the 917 save percentage is pretty good. He's 5.1 above expected. If you look at his trend line, he jumped up really high there and has continued to climb since then. He's up to a 60 on the goalie hub, which is pretty decent, all things considered. He's a 1B, if not a backup. At 17% owned, they do have this back-to-back, and if he's getting this Chicago game, that's where you would want to pick him up. If he's getting this Florida game, I would fade that. I would not pick him up for that. I would imagine they'll use Jari for this and then use Nedeljkovic for this game, and that would be a nice spot to start Nedeljkovic. Now, I talked about it before. We're going to talk about it right now. Dave Riddick. I don't think there's a goaltending controversy, although Cam Talbot has been falling pretty far. He was once the top goalie on this hub. Here's Talbot right there. But you do have the option of David Riddick, 19% owned, 5 wins in his last 9 starts, 2.09 goals against, 925 save percentage is excellent. On the season, 1.9 goals against and a 931 save percentage with a shutout. So the goals against save percentage are excellent. He's 11 goals saved above expected, and the team defense is pretty good. Even though they've been slumping in general, the team defense is still limiting chances from the inside. So you can look here at his trend. He's been going up, rocketing up here, and then kind of continuing that path onward up to a 65. So he's been really good when called upon, as opposed to Phoenix Copley, who was kind of, the guy last year, came out of nowhere, played exceptionally well. He dropped the ball this year, so now it's Rittick's turn. They do have a back-to-back Saturday, Sunday. I wouldn't want to pick him up against Boston. I would like it a little bit better against Pittsburgh. We know that Pittsburgh has a great offense with Crosby, etc., but their power play isn't humming right now, and they aren't scoring the way that we would expect them to. Riley Smith has kind of been, not disgruntled, but he did score the other game, but he has been, not necessarily fitting in as they would like. Raquel hasn't been playing as great as they'd like. Brian Rust is playing pretty well, and their centers, Malkin and Crosby, are playing pretty well, so it's up to you. Do you want to take that risk? I don't know, but of all these guys, I would probably want to pick up Stolarz for one of these back-to-backs. If he's not available, one of these two guys would be nice, and Nedeljkovic against Chicago would probably be the best spot start. Now, I don't want to do this, but we kind of have to. Grubauer, there's a back-to-back for Seattle. Seattle's not playing that great right now, and if you look at Grubauer's trend, he's been tanking. Now, a lot of this has to do with him being injured. He wasn't necessarily playing. There's not a lot of data on him recently. But they do have a back-to-back Monday at Jersey and Tuesday at the New York Islanders in Belmont. So this is very difficult for me to recommend him because he's just not that great of a goaltender over the past couple of years. 3.3 goals against, .884 save percentage, but the team defense is good, and they're going to have to use him. I would have preferred if they actually called up Chris Driedger and played him because he's been better than Grubauer. Decord's been excellent. Decord lost to Philadelphia last night, but he was excellent in that game. So Decord is still definitely an option. He's fourth on the goalie hub. So you would hope to see some of that bleed into Grubauer's file just because of the team defense, but who knows? But if you're desperate for that spot start, if you're having goaltending troubles, you could take a flyer on Philip Grubauer, 13% owned. But that's going to do it for this week's video. Hopefully you got something out of it. Tried not to make it too long this week. So if you did get something out of it, let me know in the comments section below. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.